All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are diving deep into the Battle of Thermopylae.
Ooh, this is gonna be good.
You know, I love a good battle story, and this one you sent over from Retro Rewind sounds incredible.
It really is one for the ages.
I mean, just think about it. You're interested in this battle, right?
Yeah.
So you probably already know about the insane odds the Greeks faced.
Oh, yeah. The numbers were not in their favor.
At least 50 to 1, outnumbered by the Persian forces. Can you even imagine?
Honestly, it's a scenario straight out of a movie.
Total underdog story, right?
Yeah.
But before we, jump right into the battle itself, maybe we should set the stage a bit, like paint a picture of what's going on in the world at this time.
Okay, so picture this. It's 480 BCE. King Xerxes of Persia, he's got his eyes set on Greece and launches this massive invasion.
This isn't just like a border skirmish or something.
Oh, no, no, no. This was a huge deal. A clash of civilizations, really. Could have completely reshaped the ancient world as we know it.
High stakes.
Extremely high stakes.
So with this enormous Persian threat looming, this is where our Spartans enter the scene.
Ah, yes, the Spartans.
I mean, everyone's heard of King Leonidas and his 300 warriors. But was their stand at Thermopylae always seen as this, ultimate fight for freedom?
That's actually a great question. The way we view Thermopylae today as this epic showdown between freedom and tyranny, well, that interpretation kind of developed over time.
So right after the battle, what was the focus?
Right after the battle, the focus was more on the Spartans' military skills
Makes sense.
and also their unwavering obedience to their laws, even facing certain death. That was a huge part of it.
So if the freedom versus tyranny thing wasn't the initial takeaway, how does it become so popular?
Think of it like a really, really long game of telephone. As the story of Thermopylae got passed down, through the centuries, Greek writers and orators started adding their own spin.
You put their own little flair on it.
Exactly. And they emphasized the contrast between Greek democracy and the Persians' more autocratic system.
Gotcha. It's like the story evolved with each retelling.
Precisely. So one historical event can become this powerful symbol that means different things to different people across time.
It makes you realize how fluid history can be.
Yeah, sure.
But before we get too deep into that, what about the battle itself? What made Thermopylae such a strategically important spot? Like, why there?
Okay, so picture this. Thermopylae. Essentially a narrow pass along the coast on one side, rugged mountains. On the other, sheer cliffs dropping into the sea.
No escape route.
Exactly. The Greeks, they understood this terrain. So they basically turned it into this bottleneck, classic example of using geography to your advantage.
So they basically took this massive Persian army and funneled them into this narrow space.
Yes, maximizing their own defensive capabilities. Super smart.
But, and I hate to be a downer here, but we know the Greeks didn't win in the end, right?
We do know that.
Was it just because they were outnumbered? Or did something else contribute to their defeat?
Ah, yes. The infamous betrayal. The story of Thermopylae wouldn't be complete without it. See, there was this hidden goat path. It wound through the mountains, totally bypassing the main pass at Thermopylae.
A secret back door.
Basically. And as luck would have it, a local shepherd named Ephialtes, he spilled the beans to the Persians.
Wait a minute. Ephialtes, that name rings a bell. Wasn't he?
Yes, he's the guy whose name basically became synonymous with traitor. His actions allowed a Persian force to completely outflank the Greeks, and that's a big part of why they ultimately lost. Talk about a turning point in history.
Makes you wonder, huh? Like, one person's choice can have such huge ripple effects across time. It's mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And it shows that history's rarely simple. It's this complicated web of individual actions, strategic decisions, unexpected stuff happening, all coming together to shape the world.
It's like a giant puzzle, but the pieces keep changing shape.
I like that analogy.
Okay, so we've got the historical context, the strategic importance,
Mm-hmm.
but the Retro Rewind episode also mentions Thermopylae's cultural impact, which I gotta say is what really got me hooked. Why are we still talking about this battle centuries later?
That's the heart of it, isn't it? Thermopylae's story has this power to jump across time and place. It's not just an ancient battle. It speaks to something deep within us, I think.
Ooh, I feel like you're about to drop some serious knowledge on me. What is it about this battle that speaks to people across cultures and generations?
Well, think about it. We're naturally drawn to stories about courage when everything's stacked against you. Individuals standing up for what they believe in, even when they know they might not win. Thermopylae embodies that perfectly.
It's that classic David versus Goliath story.
Murder.
We root for the underdog. Always.
Exactly. And knowing that the Spartans fought so valiantly they chose to stay and fight rather than run, it elevates them to legendary status.
Makes them seem almost superhuman.
Absolutely. Plus the fact they were so heavily outnumbered, it adds to the whole wow factor. It's a testament to human resilience, the strength of the human spirit, when faced with impossible odds.
Makes you wonder what people are truly capable of. But didn't you say earlier that the way people viewed Thermopylae changed over time? Did everyone always see the Spartans as heroes?
Well, that's the thing about history. Often it's written by the winners. And the Spartans, even though they fought bravely, they did lose. Right after the battle, there were definitely some who questioned their choices.
You mean some thought they were a little too gung-ho?
Exactly. Some argued that the Spartans' unwavering commitment to their code of honor to never retreat no matter what ultimately led to their downfall.
It's a debate that still goes on today, isn't it? Was it heroic
Mm-hmm.
or just plain reckless?
Exactly. And it's a question we'll be exploring more as we dive deeper into Thermopylae. But for now, let's maybe get into the nitty-gritty details of the battle itself.
All right, hit me with the details. What can you tell us about the actual fighting at Thermopylae? Like, paint us a picture.
Okay, so first things first, it wasn't just 300 Spartans holding the line. That's a common misconception, probably thanks to the movie 300.
Oh, you're right. I always forget there were other Greeks there, too. How many exactly were there?
The exact numbers are debated, but historians think the initial Greek force was somewhere around 7,000 men, including groups from different Greek city-states.
So a real team effort. It wasn't just Spartan bravery, but a united Greek front against a common enemy.
Exactly. And that spirit of unity, that's another key part of the Thermopylae story. Even facing impossible odds, working together can make a difference.
That's a good message, especially these days when everything feels so divided. But back to the fighting itself, was it just pure chaos, or was there strategy involved?
Oh, the Greeks were masters of warfare, especially the Spartans. Their training was legendary. They fought as one unit, shields locked together, basically a wall of bronze and muscle.
I've read about that Spartan phalanx formation. Sounds terrifying to face.
You better believe it. Imagine this wall of shields coming at you, spears jabbing out with deadly precision. The Persians, they were used to fighting on open ground. They were totally caught off guard by the Greeks' disciplined tactics.
But numbers are numbers. How did the Greeks hold off that massive force for any amount of time?
It really shows their skill, discipline, and just pure determination. For 2 whole days, they held that pass at Thermopylae, repelling every single attack. They inflicted tons of casualties on the Persians, shattering their reputation of invincibility.
2 days. That's insane. But we know it doesn't end there. What happened on day 3 that changed everything?
Ah, yes, day 3. The day things took a turn and the legend of Thermopylae was truly born. But you know what? That, my friend, is a story for part 2 of our Thermopylae deep dive.
Okay, now I'm really on the edge of my seat. Listeners, don't miss part 2 as we uncover the dramatic conclusion to this legendary clash.
Welcome back to our Thermopylae deep dive. Last time we left the Greeks holding strong, defying those crazy odds against the Persians.
Yeah, those first 2 days were pretty intense.
Yeah.
Almost felt like they might pull it off.
Yeah.
Against all odds. But then, day 3.
Ah, yes. Day 3, the turning point. When the legend of Thermopylae really solidified, remember Ephialtes, the shepherd who betrayed the Greeks, spilled the beans about that hidden goat path.
Oh yeah, can't forget a betrayal like that.
Well, morning of day 3, Persian force, led by those elite immortals, they used that path to totally outflank the Greeks. Just like that.
Man, it's wild how one guy's decision can rewrite history, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think motivated Ephialtes? Greed? Fear? Something else entirely?
Historians have been arguing about that for centuries, honestly. Some think the Persians promised him riches, power, you name it. Others think he was just scared for his life. Hard to say for sure. But whatever his reason, his actions, well, they sealed the Greeks' fate at Thermopylae.
So Persians had the high ground, literally. What happened next? Did the Greeks just give up?
Not a chance. Linnaeus, he knew they were being surrounded, totally outnumbered, basically doomed. But he makes this huge decision. Dismisses most of the Greek forces, sends them to safety. While he, a small group of Spartans, some other volunteers, they stay behind, hold the pass, buy time for the others to escape.
Wait, hold on. They knew they were trapped, outnumbered, no way out, and they still chose to fight. That's beyond brave.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
crazy, right?
You've hit on one of the big paradoxes of Thermopylae. Supreme courage. Or pointless sacrifice, hard to say, but the Spartans, their code of honor wouldn't let them retreat, even when facing certain death. It was unthinkable.
I can't even imagine that kind of mindset. Wouldn't your instinct for survival kick in at some point?
Spartans were different, trained from childhood to value duty, discipline, obedience above all else. Dying in battle, especially defending their homeland, that was the ultimate honor, ingrained in their culture, just how they were.
Wow. Such a different worldview, right? Makes you think. Are there any modern examples of that kind of absolute commitment?
That's a good question. Tough to find exact matches today, for sure. But you do see examples of incredible courage, selflessness, when people face overwhelming odds. First responders rushing into danger, activists fighting for what's right, soldiers defending their countries.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Not about the specifics, but that inner strength,
Yeah.
willingness to put everything on the line for something bigger.
Exactly. And Thermopylae, even though it happened so long ago, it's still this powerful symbol of that. Human courage, sacrifice. But let's go back to those final moments of the battle. Knowing their fate was sealed, Leonidas and his men, they fought like, well, you could say they fought like Spartans, fiercely. Even the Persians were impressed.
Intense. Any first-hand accounts of what went down?
Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, he gives this vivid account, describes the Spartans fighting like demons, their courage never wavering, even as they were cut down one by one. He writes that Leonidas fell early in the fight, and the Spartans, their king gone, they fought even harder, protecting his body, wouldn't let it fall into enemy hands.
Movie-worthy stuff, for sure. But knowing it really happened, real people fought and died like that. That's what makes Thermopylae stick with you. But they couldn't have lasted forever, right? How did it actually end?
Nope, even the Spartans, with all their skill and ferocity, they couldn't overcome those numbers forever. The last Greek defenders, surrounded, overwhelmed, they were all killed, every single one. But their stand, it bought precious time for the other Greeks to escape, regroup.
So it wasn't all for nothing.
Not at all. Tactically, yeah, they lost. But strategically, Thermopylae was a win for the Greeks. Their stand, even though it was doomed, it inspired the other Greek city-states, fueled their determination to resist the Persians.
It's like their sacrifice lit a fire under everyone else, gave them the strength to eventually defeat the Persians in later battles.
Exactly. Thermopylae became this rallying cry, a symbol of Greek unity, defiance against an enemy that seemed unbeatable. And as we've been talking about, its impact went way beyond that one conflict. It's inspired people for centuries to fight for freedom, self-determination.
Crazy to think a battle from 2,500 years ago can still be so powerful, so relevant today.
That's the power of a good story, especially one about courage, sacrifice, the fight for freedom. Those themes, they speak to everyone across cultures and time. Remind us what we're capable of, even against the odds.
I'm with you there. But there's one thing we haven't really talked about yet, something the Retro Rewind episode mentioned. The name Thermopylae means hot gates, right? Where'd that come from?
Ah, yes, the hot gates. Mysterious, isn't it?
Totally. Not your average battleground name. You expect something more like Blood Valley or Field of Swords or something.
Well, the name Thermopylae actually existed before the battle. It refers to natural hot springs in the area. Geology playing a part in history, you see.
Wait, hot springs? Seriously? Did the Greeks and Persians take a break from fighting to chill out in a spa?
Not quite, but the hot springs, they did have an impact, just not directly. Made Thermopylae important long before the Persians showed up. Natural gathering place, drew people in.
So it was already a well-known spot, like a natural crossroads.
Exactly. And over time, that narrow pass right next to those hot springs, it became a key route for trade, travel, connected North and South Greece. That's why the Greeks picked it to defend against the Persians. Strategically vital.
It's amazing how geography, history, even geology, it all ties together to shape events, huh? Like peeling back layers of time. But the hot springs themselves, did they mean anything special to the ancient Greeks? Culturally, religiously?
Now that's where it gets really interesting. Ancient Greeks, they believed those hot springs had healing powers, connected them to gods of health, medicine. They built temples, bathhouses near the springs, made them sacred sites.
So Thermopylae wasn't just strategic, it was a holy place too.
Exactly. And that adds another layer to the whole battle. Not just armies clashing, but cultures, beliefs, ways of seeing the world. The Greeks defending their home, their way of life, they felt like they were fighting for something sacred, something bigger than themselves.
Like the very ground they stood on was imbued with meaning, history, maybe even a little bit of the divine.
Exactly. And that feeling, that awareness that their fight was about more than just survival, it probably fueled their courage, their determination.
It's incredible how one place can hold so much history, so much symbolism, so much meaning.
It really is. And it reminds us every place has a story, a past that shapes its present and influences its future.
Well, you've officially piqued my curiosity about these hot gates. Got to learn more about these ancient spas, their healing powers, the whole Greek mythology angle.
Sounds like a deep dive for another day, but for now, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about Thermopylae's legacy, its impact on art, literature, pop culture.
I'm all for it. Let's see how this ancient battle still captures our imagination centuries later. All right, welcome back, everyone. We've covered a lot of grounds talking about the historical and cultural context of Thermopylae, but now I'm excited to dig into how this ancient battle has, seeped into our collective imagination, through art, literature, pop culture, the whole shebang.
It really is fascinating. Thermopylae just keeps inspiring all these creative interpretations, even after all this time. I guess those themes of courage, sacrifice, standing up against impossible odds, those resonate no matter the time period. Makes it perfect for artistic exploration.
Makes sense. And speaking of artistic interpretations, I got to bring up the movie 300.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie single-handedly introduced Thermopylae to a whole new audience. But how historically accurate is it, really?
Ooh, that's a question that always gets people talking. While it's definitely visually stunning and the action is amazing, 300 does take, let's say, some liberties with the historical details.
So it's more Hollywood than history textbook.
You could say that. It definitely emphasizes the Spartans' strength and fighting skills, sometimes a bit over the top, and it simplifies the actual battle, the characters' motivations, that kind of thing.
Okay, so it's more of an artistic interpretation than a documentary, but does that, take away from its impact?
Not at all. 300, even with the historical inaccuracies, it tapped into that fascination we all have with Thermopylae. Got people interested in the battle again, sparked conversations about courage, sacrifice, what it means to stand up for what you believe in, all important stuff.
It's a gateway drug to learning more about the real history.
I like that. A gateway drug to history.
But what about beyond Hollywood? Has Thermopylae shown up in other art forms? Literature, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. For centuries, poets, writers, artists, you name it, they've all been drawing inspiration from Thermopylae. From ancient Greek plays to modern novels, the battle's been reimagined and reinterpreted in so many ways. It's a story that just keeps giving.
Are there any specific works that, really stand out, that capture the essence of Thermopylae?
One that comes to mind is a poem called Simply Thermopylae by Lord Byron, the 19th century British poet.
Ah, Byron, the Romantic poet.
That's the one. He was known for his, well, romanticism, his fascination with heroes. And he saw in Thermopylae the symbol of humanity resisting tyranny. His poem, it's got this powerful language, vivid imagery, really captures the Spartan sacrifice, their legacy. It's worth a read.
It's pretty incredible, right? A battle fought thousands of years ago, still speaking to artists, writers, even today. It's like some events just become part of our collective memory, shape how we see the world.
I agree. It's a testament to the power of storytelling, the way certain stories become ingrained in our culture generation after generation. And it shows that these themes, courage, sacrifice, the fight for freedom, those are universal. They speak to everyone, regardless of culture or time period, reminding us of our shared humanity, I think.
It's like both the good and the bad that we're capable of.
Exactly.
It makes me think that Thermopylae acts like a mirror, in a way, reflecting back our values, what we believe in, what we hope to be.
That's a great way to put it. And it reminds us that history isn't just dates and names in a textbook. It's a tapestry woven with stories, interpretations, different viewpoints, each one giving us a different lens to understand the human experience.
So after all this deep diving, where do we end up? What's the takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about a battle that happened, over 2,000 years ago?
Well, I think Thermopylae, even though it happened so long ago, still has a lot to teach us. It reminds us that true courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about facing your fear and doing what needs to be done anyway. It shows us the power of working together, different people united for a common cause. And it highlights that even one person's actions, good or bad, can have a ripple effect throughout history. Things to think about, for sure.
A lot to unpack, right?
Yeah.
Feels like we've only scratched the surface of this story.
And that's the beauty of history. Always more to learn, new perspectives to consider, layers to peel back. It's a journey.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep digging into the story of Thermopylae. Read the original accounts, consider everyone's point of view, form your own opinions. Who knows what you might discover?
Exactly. And remember, history isn't just about the past. It's an ongoing conversation, a dialogue across generations, a journey of discovery that we're all part of.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Battle of Thermopylae. Until next time, Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.